Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my weekly wrap-up of December 6th, 2015, where once again I tell you about the things that I read this past week, which honestly wasn't a whole lot. I spent most of my free time reading short fiction this past week because that's what I felt like doing instead of reading novels, but I did finish a few things which I will tell you about now. I did finally finish The White Dragon by Anne McCaffrey, and as I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, I will do an overview of the original trilogy of Pern now that I have finished it, so you can look forward to that in the not too distant future. And other than that, I read 2 Shakespeare plays and listened to 1 audiobook this past week. The audiobook that I listened to was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. This is the first thing I've ever read by Malcolm Gladwell. I didn't really know what kind of writer he was, so I picked this up on a whim. For some reason I thought he was a scientist, but he's actually a journalist. So Outliers is Gladwell challenging our notion that high achievers, their success is due to them, their person, their individual talents, how hard they worked, the self-made man, I guess, the myth of the individual. It's a very American notion. He's saying that outliers are really more created by where they're from, their generation, their culture, who their parents and their grandparents were, what age they are when major advancements happen, and how they get very fortunate opportunities at just the right time. So they're created by a whole system of external factors that they don't actually control. And this is very much against the grain of what we usually say about outliers and how you become a very successful person. So I found this to be a very interesting idea, especially because Gladwell explains it very well through some really interesting examples. Bill Gates is one of his big case studies in the book. While I really enjoyed listening to the audiobook, it's short and fast, and Gladwell is very succinct and to the point about what he wants to say about each scenario he's discussing. It didn't blow me away, probably because this idea that Gladwell is explaining and arguing for is not new to me. Maybe because I'm a bit more skeptical or just that maybe I've come across this idea before. I've always kind of thought that really successful people just happen to be pretty lucky and that it wasn't necessarily how hard you work. So if I had come across this book years and years ago, I probably would have loved it a lot more, because it's a pretty challenging notion. It's also kind of depressing if you're just a normal person with normal circumstances. But yeah, it was really entertaining to listen to. It was pretty educational as well, but didn't completely blow me away. And the only other 2 things I have to talk about are The Merchant of Venice and The Winter's Tale by William Shakespeare. These are the last 2 out of 5 Shakespeare plays that I said I would read this year, and I just sort of went on a bit of a Shakespeare binge. The Merchant of Venice is a comedy, probably because everybody ends up getting married. I didn't think it was funny at all. The problem with this play is that it is anti-Semitic. The villain is a Jew, and he's not a villain and a Jew, he's a villain because he is a Jew. It's, yeah, that's a thing from Shakespeare's time. The story is that a man named Bassanio has squandered his fortune and he wants to marry a wealthy heiress named Portia, but in order to woo her he needs money. He asks his friend Antonio to lend him money. Antonio doesn't have any ready cash because all of his money, his assets are tied up in business ventures. So Antonio borrows money from Shylock, the Jew, but Shylock doesn't like him very much. Shylock doesn't like anybody very much, probably because they're so hateful towards him, and he says that he will lend the money to Antonio to lend to Bassanio, but if Antonio can't pay him back in full by a certain date, he must forfeit a pound of flesh to Shylock. Of course, you know that Antonio isn't going to be able to repay the debt, and there's going to be a big showdown to get him free of Shylock. And the interesting thing there is that it's Portia, the woman, the main female character, who has the triumphant scene in this. That's the best part of this play. Like, I didn't care that much about the romances. I didn't think it was funny. I was really put off by a lot of the stuff where people are saying, just the whole stuff between Shylock and the various characters was not enjoyable to read about, but Portia and Nerissa's scenes where they dress up as men, and so not only does Portia impersonate a man successfully, she impersonates a lawyer and saves Antonio on a legal technicality. And it's really interesting to see a woman do that in this play and in Shakespeare plays, especially after, I think the last Shakespeare play I read, or one of the previous ones that I read, was The Taming of the Shrew, and the stuff about Catherine and taming your wife was just, I just did not like the whole thing about how women were done in that play. And then you get a character like Portia doing that kind of thing. It's just very interesting. So I thought it was okay. It didn't interest me all that much, but I read it. I know what it's about now. I don't read Shakespeare plays to analyze them in great detail. I read them for self-education, and sometimes I really like them, and sometimes I really hate them. The other one, The Winter's Tale, I guess this is one that a lot of people don't talk about because I think I've only seen one other review of it on BookTube, and I think it was Emily Kate actually who really didn't like it. That's because this is a really crazy play that does not make sense, and it's very disjointed feeling to me, but I ended up really enjoying it, probably because I thought the language was very masterful and very complex. The King of Bohemia, I don't know how to pronounce these people's names, so Bohemia and the King of Sicilia are very good friends, and Bohemia is visiting Sicilia, and then Sicilia, Leontes, I think his name is, I think that's how you pronounce his name, he very, very abruptly believes this insane notion that his wife is having an affair with the King of Bohemia, and he accuses his wife of infidelity. His son dies out of like grief over this. Then Cecilia denies that his newly born daughter is his and sends her off to, you know, basically be killed. And then he's waiting for like a prophecy or a statement from the oracle at Delphi to tell him whether he's right or not. And then it's like, no, you are completely wrong. He just ruins a bunch of people's lives. He ruins his wife's life. His children are dead. His best friend isn't his best friend anymore. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was wrong. So it's like the first part of this reads like a tragedy to me, and then the second part is 16 years later with Cecilia's daughter has survived. She's a young woman and she's in love with the King of Bohemia's son, and all of a sudden it turns into like a romance and everything's okay in the end. It's weird. I don't know. Oh, and this is the very famous one that has one of those rare stage directions about the character exiting pursued by a bear. Yeah, a character is just completely randomly killed and eaten by a bear. It's like he has to die, but there's nobody else in the scene to kill him, so we just have a bear kill him instead. And then a statue comes to life at the end, and I couldn't figure out if it was actually supposed to be magic or if it was Paulina. She reveals the statue at the end, and it's a statue of Hermione, and then it comes to life. I'm like, was she hiding Hermione? Did they stage her death and then bring her back? Or is this really magic? I don't know. I really don't know. That's everything that I finished this past week. I'm also going to be doing a bunch of buddy reads this coming week. I'm going to be reading The Rise of Endymion by Dan Simmons, the fourth and final book in the Hyperion Canto series with Tara from Terabyte. I'm really looking forward to that. I really enjoyed the series and I can't wait to finish the story. I'm going to be reading Use of Weapons by Ian M. Banks, one of the culture novels with Sabrina from Sabrina Everywhere. And once again, I'm really looking forward to reading more about the culture. And with my friend Rachel, who isn't on BookTube, I'm going to be rereading The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I read this book years ago. It's a book that my mom really enjoyed. My mom listened to it on audiobook, and then I read it because I was so curious about it, and I really liked it. So my friend Rachel wants to read it, and I said, I will reread that with you because we haven't read anything together for a while, and I miss doing that. And other than that, I'm not really sure what I'm going to be reading. That's probably plenty for this coming week because I've been pretty busy and stressed out at work, and by the end of the day I'm usually tired and I just go to bed after trying to catch up on BookTube videos, so it happens. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.